Okay, so what can you really expect on your first day as a software developer? About, I don't know, 8, 9 years ago, I just got hired. I went to a boot camp. I self taught, did a bunch of reading, a bunch of janky apps, got to an interview somehow, and I actually passed it and got offered a job. I was still in the boot camp at this point, by the way. Still learning JavaScript, still learning HTML, CSS, and like Bootstrap at the time in jQuery. So I had very rudimentary knowledge. And here I was, got offered a job at a not so sexy company, but it was really cool. It was a small team of developers, and we were working with C Sharp, SQL, JavaScript, and .NET. And I knew about one of those technologies. I barely knew JavaScript. I knew HTML and CSS pretty well. And I was thinking, how the hell did I get this job? And how fast are they going to figure out that I should be fired? Spoiler alert, I did not get fired on that first day. I bought a bunch of Udemy courses. I asked the manager, I'm like, hey, what should I be studying? Kind of gave me a laundry list of things. I went down the rabbit hole of tutorials and didn't really understand a lot of them. And like, I don't know any of this stuff. I had really good support there. I had some awesome developers that worked with me, older people, a guy about my age that also helped and school me. It was my manager. And I did pretty well there overall. And so if you're tripping out on your first day and you're wondering, what the hell is going to happen? Am I going to get fired? What are they going to expect me to do? Do I have to come in there and write code? Are they going to laugh me out of the building? I'll tell you a little bit what I think you can expect on your first day. I'm currently an engineering manager. I've gone through several different roles at other companies, at least 4 other companies by now. I've worked on at least 5 to 6 other contract jobs. I've worked at 3 boot camps. So I have a pretty good idea of what you can expect. And I also talk to developers almost every day. I've talked to around 200 developers in the last 6 months from all around the world, many of them at the beginning stages of their career, and I have a pretty good sense of what you can expect to happen on your first day, whether you're at a mid-sized startup, small startup, or a large company. And they differ a little bit, but here's in general what I think you can expect. So, on that first day, you're probably just going to be setting stuff up. That's probably it. There's not a whole lot else they're going to really expect you to do. If it's a very small startup, your setup will probably be very easy, probably take you not very long, and you actually could be, working with somebody pair programming. But in general, for a big company, they're going to give you a while just to set up. You have meetings with HR, you may have like trainings, you have, finding where the bathroom is, where the lunch is, how your benefits and all that kind of stuff work, and just in general getting passwords and all that kind of junk set up. Also, they know you're a junior developer, right? You didn't fool anybody. You didn't come in there as a senior developer or mid-level. You came in there right at junior, right? So if you pass the interview, now you're a junior developer, associate, whatever. So you're some entry-level role. They're not expecting you to come in there guns blazing and writing a lot of code. Even if you're a senior, that's honestly not the expectation in most cases. They understand that it's going to take you a little while to get up to speed. So after that first day, then you're into your first week, your first few days, and now you may get actually an assignment to you. What can you expect from that assignment? Likely something pretty small. I've gotten change the color of a button. There's a small bug, in a React app. Change the text on a page. Write some documentation. Pretty low stakes stuff that doesn't have a time bound type of expectation to it. So you're likely going to get something that, you can kind of do on your own time just to get you acquainted with the code. And during this time, what's really important is that you're exploring the code base as well. So you're exploring how do things work, you're adding a little feature here, you're seeing how to break things, you're doing all the stuff you should be doing to get a better sense of the code base, because if you only stay tightly scoped to the little things you're doing, you're going to find that you're just going to get more confused, and after the months go on, you're just going to kind of be in the same spot. So you want to take this time to really learn, ask a lot of questions. Remember, people are more friendly during your first few months and weeks than they'll be after a year, or even after 6 months. So take this time to use your teammates' kindness and patience with you to ask all the stuff that you're curious about, because you're going to want to do it now. If you don't do it now, I guarantee you're not going to do it in 6 months. One of the biggest issues or biggest changes and things I had to get used to on a team was all the different jargon and all the different processes that you're just not having if you work in a boot camp, or if you're self-taught or whatever. You don't have things like daily stand-ups. You don't have things like code reviews. You don't have all the weird acronyms that people throw out oh yeah, the bacon and eggs API is messed with the Twitter Baker API, and that's causing problems in our Redis cat. You're hearing all this stuff, and you got to learn how to filter some of it out. But you also probably want to learn what are the important things people keep talking about. Try to dig into that stuff. And the big thing is daily stand-up. So this will be your first introduction likely to a team where you're doing stand-up. What is stand-up? It's time of day when you all meet together and you say, what did you work on yesterday? What are you working on today? And do you have any blockers? That is the most common stand-up you can do. The more short you can keep it and succinct, the better. So what you want to do is when there's a stand-up, you want to say, I worked on ticket XYZ yesterday, which is blank. It requires me to do blank. Give some context. People don't just remember these tickets or anything like that. Say what you're doing. Yesterday I had a bug I was working on where a user types into the input, but it wasn't quite getting the correct input. It wasn't trimming down the word. So what I've done is I've added another unit test to ensure we're doing that. I think I'll have a fix out today or tomorrow. By that time, I should have some time on my plate to get some more tickets. That's a good stand-up. A bad one would be, hey, yesterday I worked on ticket 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Today I'm going to continue working on ticket 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't have any blockers. It doesn't really tell anybody anything about what you're doing, and this is often a place where I see engineers either not truthful because they're actually really stuck and they don't want to admit that. This is a good time to say, hey, I'm really stuck on this particular ticket, on this actual issue. If anybody has time today and has seen this issue before, I'd really appreciate it if you could help me out. That's a good way to get some pair programming time in, also just get your work done faster, and let people know, hey, I'm going to be truthful, you can trust me, and when I say I'm going to have something done, I am, because the worst thing you can do is say, you've been working on this thing for 10 days, and say, hey, I thought this was going to be done. You say, oh yeah, I'm almost done, and won't make you look too good. Next thing you're going to have to get used to is code reviews. So code reviews are when you type your code up, you say, hey, it works, right? You've done all the work, you've seen that the button is the color green that they really want. Excellent, right? So now you send your code review, you open up a pull request on GitHub, and somebody's going to code through and look at your code. And when they look at that code, they're going to say, hey, I noticed you use the word green for color and not hexadecimals. I want you to change that. And you're going to say, sure. Or you can say, hey, I think actually we should do X, Y, and Z. If you're very junior, it's unlikely you're going to push back and say, hey, I think we should do this. You're just going to say, yeah, sure, whatever. Code reviews can come off very cold and intimidating because engineers in general typically are very pragmatic, practical, logical driven people. And we use code reviews and we kind of don't know how to articulate ourselves in a way that sounds welcoming. So a lot of times you'll see something that sounds really cold, maybe even mean, and it can hurt because you're attached to the code emotionally. You shouldn't be. And you'll have to learn how to give very good code reviews yourself. Now, a good code review would be not only to teach and tell somebody how to do something, but why. I think you should do hexadecimals because our designers depend on these certain colors to be this specific shade of green to match the rest of our color scheme and palette that we're using across the site. That's why, and then maybe even have a little link to some documentation or an article that explains why they're using that particular thing. That is helpful. Saying, hey, you named this function this doesn't make sense. That can just hurt somebody's feelings. Use emojis, use all sorts of things that make it sound like you're a human talking rather than a robot. So that is what you can expect your first day, first week. You're going to also feel a ton of imposter syndrome, a ton of feeling like this isn't for me. Am I going to get fired? Are they going to find out? I can't figure out how to fix this super simple bug, and now I don't know how to do anything. And you're feeling like, who am I? What am I doing here? Why did they hire me? Why are they paying me this much? That's completely normal. And I'll be honest with you, you may have to use a little bit of your weekend time to get used to the code base. No one wants to hear that. I've done that at literally every single job I've been to. I've had to use some of my Saturdays, maybe some of my Sundays in order to get used to the code base. Working as a software developer is not all flexible schedules and big bags and eating burritos and going to micro kitchens and all these things you see on TikTok. It's a lot of work. So if you're getting prepared for that first day, I hope you feel a little more calm. You can read about all these things nowadays. There's tons of articles on the internet that'll give you all sorts of different advice and intake and input into what you can particularly expect on your first day. And I hope this gave you a little insight. And you might think, after the first day, after the first week, after the first month, what's next? Well, that's when you're going to want to try to actually make big contributions to your team. You're going to want to understand how you can make an impact on the team beyond just getting things done and not being a burden. So you want to look for areas that can be improved. You want to talk with your manager during one-on-ones and saying, hey, what can I do to stand out on this team? What can I do to be better? What are some things that you think we can improve on? And then you want to also have your own things that you think, hey, I noticed that our code review process hasn't been catching a lot of bugs. Here's how I think we could fix something like that. That is what's going to make you stand out. It's what's going to make you propel and accelerate in your career beyond saying, hey, I just finished another bug where the color was a different shade of green, and I've done that several times this year. That's not impressive or interesting. That's enough to keep you not fired. And if you're already worried about getting fired, I'll tell you this. I have rarely ever seen a developer get fired for having poor skills. Unless they're very senior or in some sort of high visibility role, and they come on the team, and the team expects a certain, a certain level of skill, and they just can't perform at that level consistently, you can get fired for that. Now, people that come on as juniors, you really don't have much expectations. They're getting a bargain on you because you're working for a lot cheaper rate than they would normally have to pay for a mid-level developer, and in exchange, they're teaching you. So they're hoping that you stay on past the time that you would normally leave. So if you get a junior developer, for example, and you're paying them $80,000, mid-level developer may be $120,000. Now you, within a year or two, you'll be a mid-level developer. Your salary will not be anywhere near $120,000 because you've stayed there. So now you're getting maybe 90, 100,000, but you're really actually mid-level, and you could be making 20,000 more somewhere else potentially, but instead you're there. So now they've got a great bargain on you, and you've got the benefit of all the knowledge and expertise they've given to you. That's enough of that topic for the day. Hope you come back, and we'll explore other ways that you can excel, propel, get better in your career, not just not get fired, but actually, do cool stuff. Hope that was helpful. Talk to you later.